Hello and welcome wherever you are to the LFC Transfer Room and a celebratory stream. We're all in a good mood today. It's a nice, humid day here in Cardiff, Wales. I'm joined by Jack from across the pond and Adam from across the little pond. How are you, boys? You good?
Good. Sweating.
It is a warm day.
Yeah,
This
it's
is our
humid
summer
here.
now.
Yeah, it's not a fun day across the world, I guess.
Yeah. So today we're going to be celebrating 10 years of Jordan Henderson. Obviously, yesterday was the anniversary of when he signed in 2011. Liverpool captain, Champions League, Premier League, Super Cup, World Cup, and League Cup winning. An absolute legend. And we thought it's only right to do a celebratory stream of his decade at Liverpool Football Club. To start off, though, what were your guys' reactions when he signed, if you can remember? I mean, it's that long ago. Adam, how did you feel when we signed this lanky kid from Sunderland?
Probably the same as most fans. Like, who is this guy? Who is he? Because we didn't know. I suppose I think a lot of fans didn't know much about him coming from Sunderland at the time. And I suppose you couldn't really rate it at the time, like whether he was going to be good or not. You know, he was still a young guy. So I think it was one of those signings where, I can't remember at the time if we were probably in another one of those stages where we were saying, like, let's sign Mbappe. Obviously not 10 years ago, but whoever the equivalent to Mbappe was back then. And we saw Jordan Henderson. It's like, oh no, what? But it turned out well. It turned out well in the end. To be honest with you, I think a lot of fans are the same. It took me a while to really warm up to the guy. A couple of years, really, to be honest with you. I never really rated Henderson up until probably the point where Klopp got there. And I think it changed things around for him. But even the first year under Klopp, I think it was kind of similar. Like he was a good defensive midfielder, and I don't think we were talking about him as the way we would now after 10 years. But I think things have kind of took a massive turn in the last couple of years, and he's probably one of the few players I can say that I'm glad he's proven me wrong in what he's become with the club.
Yeah, I can remember 2013-14, the season of all seasons where we should have won the league. Jordan Henderson was, in that season, he was immense, really, because he had the freedom to be slightly more creative. And it was his absence in the last three or four games, I think, was the key to Manchester City winning the league. But Jack, what are your early memories of Jordan Henderson?
Well, it was so long ago that Sunderland were, first of all, in the Premier League, but also like competitive in the Premier League. The season before he joined us, they finished in 10th place. They were a top half club. We signed him from Sunderland. So it's not like he came from Sunderland today, where they're obviously in League One. So that was obviously a decade ago. It doesn't feel like it's been a decade, but it's been a testament to how good he's been, that he's been able to walk in and at where we were, finishing in the first three seasons, 8th, 7th, and then second, obviously, in his third season. He was able to continue that his progression from being who are you to, oh, wow, 4 goals, 7 assists, and arguably your absence was the reason we couldn't win a title. He did that in the span of 3 years. And I don't think we would have thought that with Gerrard in that 2013-14 team that we would talk about Henderson that way, in this way, 7 years on. But we are. And he's unbelievably key to us, to England, the national team. I'm very excited to see him back in a fully fit side, because he is unbelievably talented. Not just a great leader or a great person, but he is unbelievably talented.
Yeah, I guess your comments in the comment section. Exactly. So moving on, we talk about in 2013, Brendan Rodgers come in the summer before. Interested in Clint Dempsey, an American, Jack, who you'll remember fondly. And Henderson was actually being talked about as part of a swap deal to Fulham for Clint Dempsey. Now, if we go into some alternative reality where this deal actually happened, what do you think the impact would have been on Liverpool Football Club, Jack?
Well, I mean, Clint Dempsey would have been doing the exact same thing that Henderson would have been, not even better. I mean, Clint Dempsey, I'm an American, so I was watching the CONCACAF Nations League, unfortunately. A bit of a dead competition. USA champions in that. But Clint Dempsey was hosting Like he was one of the guests on the broadcast. And versus Henderson is the captain of Liverpool Football Club. That's where they are right now. I mean, age difference, obviously, and you would have hoped he would have had his peak closer to when we would have signed him. But I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020. But I think that it was a bit of a sus deal then, and if you can go back in time, only rival fans would try and swap Henderson for Dempsey because Henderson's been everything you would want in a captain and a player for the football club. Dempsey would have been cool. I would have been happy as an American, but knowing what I know now, I would have been incredibly depressed if that had happened.
Oh mate, just imagine Clint Dempsey lifting the European Cup. I wouldn't have complained, but it wouldn't be the same.
I would have complained, but it would just been like, yeah, he's Clint Dempsey.
Yeah. Exactly. That actually could have happened. I mean, that was genuinely on the table, but Henderson chose to stay and fight for his place. That's pretty much typical of the character and the man, isn't it, Ad?
Yeah, 100%. Like, to be honest with you, I think maybe we have to give Brendan Rodgers some credit in the sense that if he didn't kind of come to Henderson 6-7 years ago and say, we're going to trade you for Clint Dempsey and some cash, he mightn't have, it could have been the spark that kind of turned him into a much hungrier player. Obviously I think he's excelled even from then. But I think when your manager comes to you and says, "Yeah, you're kind of disposable," I'm sure it really motivates players in that way. And yeah, I mean, like what Jack said, it would have been cool to get Dempsey. He probably might have done a few more bits, maybe creatively, but I mean, the guy wouldn't have had the same leadership qualities as Henderson. I think a lot of fans balked at the idea of Henderson being captain when Gerrard left Liverpool in 2015. But at the end of the day, we know now why he was made captain, and I know that was down to Brendan Rodgers, but we know why Jurgen Klopp kept faith in him as the captain. And even up to maybe 3 or 4 years ago when Virgil van Dijk came and people were saying, why isn't Van Dijk captain? We should make this guy captain. This guy's the best centre half in the world. He's got leadership at the back. But as much as I love Virgil, in the games when Virgil's been captain and Henderson's been absent, it's a totally different scenario. It really is. It's like it's chalk and cheese difference. It's not saying that Henderson's not a good leader, or sorry, Van Dijk's not a good leader, but in comparison to Henderson, Henderson's importance, cannot be underestimated. And you might have a debate going in the next couple of years in regards to, who kind of made a bigger impact in regards to not kind of contributions maybe in terms of assists and goals and everything like that and how good of a player they were, but in terms of a captain, there's going to be that debate between Gerrard and Henderson. Who as a captain made a bigger impact within a team, within a starting 11. And sometimes you could argue maybe it was Henderson, because there's been a lot of games where Henderson hasn't been playing and we've suffered, or he hasn't been in the squad for a long period and we've suffered. And yeah, fair enough, you could say the same back when Gerrard had his injuries, but I think we still kind of, even then we had players around us that could maybe fit into that role. And I think maybe this is the thing Liverpool need to look at going forward. Who can step up to that role that Henderson's doing now. And that's going to be another debate for another day. Obviously, that we're going a bit off topic now. But yeah, it just shows his importance in the last couple of years as a captain, not just as a player.
Yeah, I want to jump on the back of that. So often we compare players, we debate on players based on stats, most notably the two most important statistics in the game, goals and assists. Henderson's not going to bring you that in abundance, and our midfield confuses fans, people, experts who don't look at the game too critically because they don't pick up the goals, the assists, the moments that you watch in the highlights. They do the dirty work, and he organizationally, positionally, leadership, those are 10 out of 10 in every one of those attributes because he keeps the side organized, disciplined, and that's what makes title champions, having players like Henderson. And so losing him is losing your title winning ability. So we just got to hope a healthy Euros for him, and he's back next season.
I think that we moved on to sort of other points that we had. I mean, when he got the captaincy, a lot of people think it's a poison chalice trying to take over from Steven Gerrard. I could argue now, and I firmly believe this, that I think that there couldn't have been a better man for the job. I mean, anywhere in the world. I think he'd been groomed for it. He'd already done it in certain occasions. I think with the fact that Steven Gerrard gave his blessing as well, he sort of nailed it for some fans. But and I was one actually, and I hate to regret this, and I'm gonna get absolutely piled for this. But when Klopp came in, I wanted Emre Can to be captain. Now we see how that turned out. We see how that one turned out. I always used to sell him on my FIFA career modes and make Can captain. But yeah, it's turned out unbelievably. He's a player who divided a lot of fans. I mean, we can all recall like he passes sideways and backwards. Those ones are still a little bit outdated. But yeah, I mean, what are your responses to critics of Henderson now? I mean, how would you say to someone and convince them that Jordan Henderson is what he is and what we know him to be?
I would show them the thumbnail. Jordan Henderson lifting the Champions League trophy. Show him lifting the Premier League trophy. He's been around. He's in title-winning sides, and I don't understand how you can have a criticism for Henderson because the role he does it so well at a world-class level. If you dislike Henderson, then you dislike almost every other position that's not a forward or not a number 10 that scores goals. There's really no way in a footballing sense if you actually watch matches with your eyeballs and you don't just look at the stats after the match, you see who scored the goals on a little score graphic, you know that Henderson does everything leading up to the goal. He is so integral to this side. And I mean, as Blackhammer says, just look at his trophy cabinet. I mean, players don't just lead them to trophies. And I know it's tough to compare Gerrard and Henderson in that regard because Gerrard did not have a manager like Klopp with the players like Klopp has. He never had that in his career. And if he did, he would have won a title in the Premier League, would have won more Champions League titles. But Henderson was able to break our drought because he was able to lead this side and build the side as the coach on the field. So I'm actually happy for rival fans to dislike him because really there's no downside for them disliking him. They just continue to underrate him, and he continues to prove them wrong. And long may it live.
In terms of that, I mean, he's also in the last 18 months, especially, and even before that, he's proven to the whole world what a good man he is, as well as a good footballer. He's always ambassador for the LGBTQ plus community. He stood shoulder to shoulder with the Black Lives Matter campaign. He still does. He's the ambassador for the NHS. He was the organisation for the captains when the European Super League happened. I just run out of words, Adam.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what Jack said a second there about a lot of players being, judged on, assists and goals and statistics like that. And I just want to I'll probably jump the gun a bit, but you go back to last year when Henderson won the Football Writers Award, and he didn't win the PFA. That went to Kevin De Bruyne. And Kevin De Bruyne is a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong; he's a top class, world class player. But in terms of a complete player that can turn it on in every single game, even if he might not be the most skillful, might not be the most creative minded, Henderson should be winning those awards all day long if he's nominated for them, because that was a big difference last year why he won the Football Writers Award, because of that just complete all aroundness in his game. It wasn't just a case of he's scoring a lot of goals, he's making assists, and not taking anything away from Kevin De Bruyne, but I'm not having to dig at City fans or anything, but there was many times last season in many games that not just, other City players, but De Bruyne had dropped his head as well. So for all the great goals and all the assists that he had, the guy, went out of games. He dropped his head. He didn't have the same fight. didn't have the same determination. And that's what makes Henderson not just such a great captain, but like a fantastic all-around midfielder. It's like what Jack said. If you don't like Henderson, you don't like any player that's not a forward or an attacking player. It's like 100% true. And especially when you look at like the situation now with England, and you have people saying he shouldn't have been picked, or the controversy with the penalty and everything surrounding that. At the end of the day, if that guy is not there, and again, no disrespect to this player, but Harry Kane's not going to be leading that team. He just won't, because he's not captain material. Jordan Henderson is. So for all the things that he might be lacking in regards to goals and assists, he makes up for in abundance in everything else. So look, I mean, I can understand where the likes of people like Roy Keane and all are coming from, but at the same time, he's there in these teams for a reason. He's picked every week in Liverpool for a reason. He's Liverpool's captain for a reason.
100%. And don't forget, in the England setup, you remember the whole saga with Sterling and Gomez, and who was the man to set it up to settle it, even though he wasn't there? Jordan Henderson. Going back to all the accolades I said earlier about it off the field, does that prove just even more why he's a leader and why he's a captain and why he is revered in Liverpool and probably in England as well?
Well, I mean, he carries himself so well. It's like I'm totally just forgot his name from Game of Thrones. No king says he's a king. No captain says I have to say I'm the captain. He just does it. Everything he does just exudes class, and not even from a captain sense. It's from a footballing and a moral and a personal sense that you see, wow, that's a guy who carries himself so well. And there was a Jack Grealish quote earlier today talking about how well Harry Kane and Jordan Henderson take care of their bodies in training, how hard they work. And he's like, the reason they've had the careers they've had for so long is because of that work ethic. And he's obviously taking by example to them. And Henderson just does everything that you need to be a successful footballer. He wasn't blessed with great technical ability, with great physical attributes. He can run pretty far, pretty long, but is he gonna?
He also has a good pass in his locker and can put him away when he wants.
He definitely does, and I'm not saying that he's a bad like he doesn't struggles with the ball, but he's not gonna set the world alight. He's not like Gerrard in that sense, but and I don't want to like draw comparisons in their leadership abilities, but everything Gerrard was as a leader, Henderson has that. And it's on the field, off the field, as a person. And Liverpool always have prided themselves on being more than just a football club that shows up on the weekend and plays a match against another football club. They are a symbol in the community. They want to be an entity to inspire and to lead. And you need a captain capable of carrying that mantle. And I think Virgil van Dijk, I can imagine he's got, I think he's about just a few months younger than Henderson, but I can imagine as a center back, he'll stick around a bit longer. And if Henderson's the replacement or Van Dijk's the replacement for Henderson as captain, he'll have the exact same qualities. But Henderson has led this team for, is it been 5 years now that he's been captain?
Since 2015, so 6 years now. It's unreal, and I just think though, as well as Henderson, there's a lot of great characters and leaders in that dressing room. One's just left, Genie Wijnaldum, who will do probably either another stream about his entire Liverpool career, or just have a nice video on it. But why not? You think James Milner, been playing in the Premier League since he was 16, 17. You got Adam Lallana's just recently left. Of course, he was another big character. Big experienced players. Who really, in terms of being a young player, like Trent Alexander-Arnold in that dressing room, or Curtis Jones, to look up to someone like James Milner, Jordan Henderson, Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, these kind of players who are such consummate professionals. Even Mo Salah actually is another one that doesn't get recognised enough as a leader. Mm-hmm. I just think it's probably the perfect breeding ground for young players at the moment. That's why we see so many coming through. I mean, just imagine being Queven Kelleher looking at all of there and all of that. It's like, yeah. Do you just think that the Henderson's legacy will go far beyond his playing career, Adam?
100%. I think he's one of the last of a kind of dying breed. That classic midfield type of footballer who has adapted to any game that's been put in front of him by several different coaches, and a player that's loyal to the club that he's with. It was a long time before we won trophies. 5-6 years before we won trophies, or sorry, not including the League Cup, obviously. But yeah, from when Henderson arrived, it was what, 8-9 years before he would have won a Champions League with us. So you don't get that loyalty anymore. You don't get that passion and dedication in every single player. Not to say that like players aren't like that, but I think he's the last of the type of player that has that kind of motivation in him every single game and has that dedication, passion, and that loyalty, most importantly. Because when is the last time you could think of a player, or if you look at any player now, that you can say, oh, that player is going to be with that club for 10 years. Like it's very hard, not to say that player doesn't love the club they're with, but it's very hard to kind of pick out a player like Henderson. So I think his legacy will live on. I'm sure I know for a fact he's painted over a lot of walls in Liverpool. So I think that just kind of shows you how important he is to the club and how much of an impact he's made in the last 10 years and how he will be remembered. I mean, you look back at all the great captains of the past, like Steven Gerrard, like Graham Souness, all these guys are remembered. These guys have not faded into memory, and it's not just because Henderson's won the Champions League and the Premier League. I think he would have been remembered regardless, just because, as we've spoken about, how much of a leader he is. But just going back to, I suppose, earlier on, we were talking about like his success with Liverpool. I mean, it's very rare like that you can come into a club, any club, it could be the richest club on the planet, be the captain and win the Champions League and win a league title. It is rare, even for a Manchester City, and that's not a dig at City because of the Champions League, but it is rare for a player to come in and do that these days.
Adam, you're just tearing into Man City today. You're like, oh, they shouldn't have won.
It's not intentional. I swear it's not intentional.
Subconscious. To be fair, Henderson did score a screamer against Man City back in 2015. But talking of screamers, we're going to be talking about Henderson's goals for Liverpool. His first one actually came against Bolton in August 2011. Charlie Adam also scored in that game. Both got their first Liverpool goals, and they both had considerably different careers, especially at Anfield. Charlie Adam's now playing for Dundee. So it's still going though. Fair play, Charlie. But yeah, in terms of your favourite Jordan Henderson goals, we'll start with you, Jackie boy. Where do you look?
That one against Man City, was that in 2014 when we beat Manchester City, or was that 2015?
No, 2015. We beat them 2-1 at home.
Yeah,
I was there actually. 13-year-old Chris was there.
That's pretty crazy. That was a good one. Obviously, we talked about it before the stream. The one against Chelsea, the absolute screamer over Thibaut Courtois, who was like 9 feet tall, and he still couldn't get to that one because it was such a perfect strike. That one, I think, I still watch to this day, and I'm like, how did he hit a ball so perfect? That was the classic pass the ball into the back of the net. He has scored a ton of like brilliant goals like that. But I mean, obviously, another one is the first goal against Barcelona, the most important one, I think.
Well, he didn't score it.
He did not score it. He basically scored it. Literally in my head, like I just pictured that. I wanted to make sure that he had scored that goal. And in my head, I saw Divock Origi kind of like shuffle it, saved by the hand of Ter Stegen, and then Henderson was the one who tapped it in. I just saw that in my head, but it was the opposite.
Oh, Christ. Just seen about 10 viewers leave after that.
Yeah, my bad. That was good. For me right there.
That's a stinker, but we move. Adam, what's your favourite Hendo goal?
I was actually watching it back recently. I think it was against Southampton in the 2018-2019 season. I think we beat them 3-1, and Henderson scored, and I think it was just such a massive moment because we were still in the hunt then for the title. Obviously we went right down to the wire that season with City, and again this ties into everything we've talked about already, but just his reaction to scoring that goal, and it was another kind of win that we kind of scraped in the very end. His reaction to that and just the importance of the kind of fight back, and I think that's the real season we kind of seen that kind of at full speed from Liverpool, that real kind of determination and to claw games back, and just his reaction to scoring that goal was absolutely massive. So obviously that season didn't end well for us in regards to the league. I know we won the Champions League, but it's something that ties into everything we've already mentioned.
Yeah, I got a couple. Slightly more recent. Obviously, that Chelsea one was unbelievable. I got the header against Wolves last season. Similarly to what you said, Adam, just the reaction of him when he scored the goal, like the passion that just pours out. And actually, in terms of actual quality, the one he scored against Crystal Palace earlier this season, his only goal this season. I mean, it was an absolute worldie of a hit. I know it made it 7-0. It didn't really matter, but just a screamer. I was like, come on, Jordan. It's like he's been banging them in for the whole of his career.
I don't remember that goal because I was just so on a high from remembering Minamino scoring. Because I think,
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what we all wanted. So he was just overshadowed Henderson that day.
Yeah, and then he never played again. But we move. Just in general, favorite Henderson moments before we leave. I think there's several iconic ones, but Jackie boy, again, we'll start with you.
I don't know. Like I genuinely can't pick out a one that hits more than when he raised the Champions League final. I mean that's just such a simple duh answer, but I mean, everything else pales in comparison because the year prior, he had to wear the runners-up, the silver medal, and they came back the next year and they won it, and he lifted it, and that will be forever one of the best moments of my life that transformed us because we could have fallen off after getting so close to winning the Champions League the year prior, but we got back and we had just been off of the devastation of falling short to Manchester City in the league. And to win that and seeing him lift that was the moment when I realized, oh, holy crap, we are now champions of Europe. And he brought us that. And that I'll be forever grateful of him for being a leader for us. And him being the man who was able to raise that trophy to the world. It's the obvious answer, but for me, it's the only one.
Adam?
Yeah, literally word for word what Jack said. I don't think he could have put any. I don't think I can put it any better. I totally agree, and especially what Jack said there about losing to Madrid the year before in the final, and just that image of Henderson, walking past the trophy and having that second place medal is something that would have stuck in his mind, and again, it just shows how determined we were to kind of bounce back from that. And there was always that fear after that final that, fans thought that, we were going to capitulate and it could have just went downhill. And to kind of come back the next year as captain again and win it was just unbelievable. And it doesn't feel, it's mad, but even a couple of years later, it doesn't feel real. It almost doesn't feel like it happened. You have to, I can't think of the amount of times, even randomly in the last few weeks where I just look back at that clip of us lifting the Champions League trophy and it's just you forget just kind of this is real, this happened, this is only recent that we did this and the Premier League. But no, like Jack said, it was a massive moment for him as a player and for fans and the club, and that just set us on a course to where we are now and win the league the next season and whatever we do in the coming season.
Yeah, massive shout out to Lieutenant Eric who's watching from Canada, by the way. Cheers for tuning in, buddy. And finally, boys, before we go, how long do you think Jordan Henderson has left at Liverpool? We'll start with you, Adam.
It's I'm gonna, because he's put it so well today, so I have to kind of reference Jack again. Just in regards to kind of the energy that Henderson has and how well he looks after himself. And it's similar comparisons to a player like James Milner. And obviously we know James Milner's in his mid-30s now. He's still going. Obviously he's not playing every single game. He might only play maybe an hour in games that he starts in. But, he's still incredibly energetic for a player his age. And I think when you look at a player like Milner, you can make similar comparisons with Henderson. So, I mean, I think there's every chance that he could be playing for at least another 4 or 5 years. I mean, in regards to kind of starting at kind of top level with ourselves, before kind of maybe falling into the kind of similar role to Milner at the moment, I think, yeah, there's definitely a chance he has 3 or 4 years left. I know he's obviously had his injury troubles in the last couple of years. That hasn't helped him much, but I mean, just for how well he looks after himself, for the energy he has, I could definitely see it happening. I think if we're gonna preserve players like Henderson, players like Thiago for another couple of years, it's massively imperative that like we go into the transfer market and we bolster that midfield and we get players that can actually come in and not necessarily kind of make a similar impact to players like Henderson, because you're not always going to get that. But players that can come in and do a job, I think we need to start taking pressure off the likes of Henderson, if we want to keep players like him going for another couple of years.
Yeah.
I want to follow up. I think everything's pointing to Klopp going on sabbatical, leaving Liverpool after 2024. And I think that so Henderson's contract goes through 2023. I think I'll probably get an extension, maybe a 2-year extension, something like that. And he will probably be the captain for the first year under the new head coach, or new manager, I should say, not a head coach. It's not America. And then probably maybe move on after that. I think 2025 is my prediction that's when he'll be either go back to Sunderland, just take a smaller role at Liverpool. Because he still has, he's 30. He still probably has about 6 seasons left in him, I think. 6 years. They go till 36, 37. Now, could he play in Jurgen Klopp's system for 6 or 7 more years? I'm not sure. He would have to play a different role, probably a deeper role like Gerrard, move deeper in the field. So I think he definitely has some time left, but if I had to predict, I would say at the very least, maybe even moved on as a captain in 2024, even if he's still at the club. Like, he doesn't leave the club, but it's like, all right, it's time for a week in, week out player to take the captain's armband. Maybe he hand it to Virgil in 24 when he'd be, I think, like 33 at that point, 34. So he'd still have another year or two at center back. So, or maybe you hand it over to Trent, see how he can take over. So my guess would be 2024, and the captaincy 2025 in the career.
Yeah, you popped off so many more questions in my head, but I'm gonna leave it for that one. Thank you everyone for interacting with the stream. Thank you very much, Adam and Jack, for joining us. I'm going to record a couple of videos on Henderson after this, so we'll see about that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss it. Giveaway at 1K, guys. Giveaway at 1K. Subscribe right now. Thank you very much, boys above me, for joining us, and we will catch you in the next live stream. See you in a bit.